is the Minister at the heart of the plan. That is Michael O'Brien, Minister for Agriculture, Food and Fisheries, and we welcome him to the program.
Yeah.
Michael, can you tell us a little bit more then about the plan for both the long-term sustainability and the diversification of the Riverland?
Look, afternoon, gentlemen. The impetus for the plan came from a realisation that one, the Riverland was in drought, and even when it came out of drought, there would be ongoing restrictions on the amount of water available for irrigation as a result of the Basin Water Plan. The other was concern that there was an over-reliance on wine grape, that there was something like a 20% overproduction of wine grape around the nation, and that applied equally, if not a little more, in the Riverland. So we had water issues and too heavy a reliance on one particular crop. So we set out to, as you've rightly identified, commence the process of diversifying the economy of the Riverland so that we didn't suffer this outcome of population decrease, substantial drop in economic activity, and then a slump in underlying asset values. So what has been done over the last 20 months is, with the aid of about $500,000 all up, 400,000 from the state government and the balance from local government, we've undertaken a process, one, to map the existing economy of the Riverland, and two, to identify emerging possibilities, both in terms of new cropping, new techniques, but also we've also highlighted higher education as a real possibility, and Flinders have just indicated that they're very keen to put a $30 million facility into Renmark to train medical professionals and ultimately teachers. There is a potential market in the pre-retiree and the retiree market up there, given the fact that they've got excellent golf courses, and also in tourism and ecotourism. And so they were mapped extremely thoroughly. And as Rob said, the state government have now, we've stumped up $20 million over 4 years to now go out and get that investment and bring it in to the Riverland.
Yeah, well, Michael, it sounds very good news, and the Riverland Futures Task Force have obviously played a big role. They'd be pretty happy, I would have thought.
Look, they are. I think they've received considerable acclaim within the community, because I think the community were looking for a very clear sense of direction. And you might have seen probably 6 to 8 weeks ago, Rob Brokenshire did a freedom of information on underlying local government asset values, property values, and that showed that there'd been a significant slump in real estate values in the Riverland. So I think for the Riverland to have a task force, largely made up of people from local government, the mayors and the CEs, and from the NRM board and the Economic Development Board, to actually map out a future for the Riverland at a very, very crucial time, has been met with probably the word great relief would be appropriate. And with the outcome in the federal election, I think the release of the prospectus is quite timely, because with the rural or regional independents exercising such clout within the Gillard government, we've got a great opportunity now to go to the Commonwealth with all that's come out of the task force, particularly the investment prospectus, and go to Simon Cream and say, well, look, we probably are one of the few regions in Australia that have a clear idea where we want to take our economy and our community, and we'd like to put our proposal into the mix for additional federal funding. So I think the timing is great, and it's a very, very specific and very, very focused set of propositions for substantial investment in the Riverland, which we hope will maintain the level of economic activity and see it grow in line with growth across the state and also population. We don't want to see a stagnant population or a declining population in the Riverland. So that additional 7,000 to 8,000 people over the next 20 years will mean that the Riverland will grow in line with the rest of the state.
Yeah, well, I think your timing's absolutely impeccable as far as the federal bit goes, because the level of funds that have been sort of committed through the negotiations of the last few weeks is very large, and I can imagine that particularly with some shifts in portfolios, new ministers, which will mean new staff and whatever, I think that your timing's extra good, because I think the federal government and federal ministers will be looking for projects that are on the shelf and ready to go to get some of that funding moving to keep the independents happy. And with Oakeshot's statements also about education, I think that having Flinders involved is also sort of magnificent timing.
Look, it is, and to have 4,000 or 5,000 additional young people in the Riverland, even if they're only there for 3 or 4 years while they complete their degree. It'll happen on an ongoing basis, but to have that number of young people coming into the Riverland to study, I think is going to be a tremendous boon for the Riverland. It'll be very invigorating, and look, if we do it properly, Rob, we can pitch to regional Victoria and regional New South Wales for those students as well. They could come from across the Victorian and New South Wales border, so it could be a very strong regional hub for the education of young people from that area of Australia.
Yeah, and certainly what we've seen in the past is if they're trained in that area, certainly the Riverland's never going to have trouble getting doctors, nurses, teachers, whatever other occupations are trained in that area. If they're trained there, a lot of them are prepared to stay, so it solves another problem along the way.
Yeah, it certainly does, Rob. And look, probably a fortnight ago, I spent a week travelling along the Murray from Mildura to Albury and stopping at a lot of large regional centres along the way, including Shepparton. And even though they're heading in similar directions to where we want to go with the Riverland prospectus, none of them actually have a blueprint for the future. And they were very, very impressed with the work that we'd put in over the last 18 or 20 months. The in-depth study of the economy and all of the various propositions that we put up to attract significant private sector investment into the Riverland. They've done none of that. So for that reason, I think with Simon Crean looking for projects, to be able to basically go to Canberra and say, okay, well, here we are. We'd like some federal government buy-in, and I don't think the federal government basically want to throw money at regions for tarting up of playgrounds and all the rest of it. They want to see real income and employment generating investment on the ground. I think we're extremely well placed.
Well, Michael, just reading between the lines then, it would certainly seem then that this prospectus for the Riverland would have come out irrespective of the rather unique federal political situation. But am I then led to believe that the state government and yourself would be seeking to capitalise on that current situation, and can rural South Australians expect further announcements to make use of their better, for lack of a better phrase, a better representation on the federal level?
Look, they could. I really couldn't preempt it. But my view was, even prior to the federal election, we knew that the Murray Basin water plan was going to be released, and that some of the projections were as high as 40 or 50% of water that's currently going into irrigation being diverted into environmental purpose, environmental flow. And there was a paper done by the Cotton CRC said that if the amount of water that was diverted in the basin from irrigation was as high as 50%, you could see a movement of population out of the whole of the basin of around 25%, which flagged to me that we had to be extremely proactive, not only in South Australia but elsewhere in the basin, to ensure that we, in adopting the recommendations, even though they might be considerably modified, if we aren't proactive, we could actually end up with substantial population drain out of our major regional centres, not only in South Australia but elsewhere, and that was one of the reasons I travelled along the length of the Murray about a fortnight ago. So we've got to be prepared for that contingency, and I think now having a couple of independents wielding significant influence, it's really going to bolster the effort, if you like, in ensuring we maintain the viability of the basin as a whole and the Riverland in particular.
Well, Minister, congratulations on the plan, and we do wish you all the best in its implementation. And indeed, thank you for your time this afternoon.
No, it's very, very kind of you to have me on. Thanks very much.
Minister Michael O'Brien there, the Minister for Agriculture, Food and Fishery.